welcome to the last review show, the review show nobody asked for. Today we'll be talking films and telly for the next hour. We're in Joel Linger's kitchen. That's Joel Linger there.
Right.
My name's David Edgecombe. We also have
Roy van Landschoot
and
Nicole.
lovely foursome today. So, before we start, just some admin. You can find us on Twitter, at Last Review Show. Go online to our blog, lastreviewshow.com. Find us on SoundCloud, just search for Last Review Show, and YouTube, just search for Last Review Show, and you'll see us. I think you'll see us. There's a little, there's a logo of us, I believe, all sat there.
Yes, that's true. Three of
Right?
Of them.
Just the three of us. Yeah,
Not
just
me.
the men, Son's lady. So
Yes.
yeah, do go online and find us at all those outlets and enjoy yourself. So, oh yeah, loads of spoilers as well, and swear words. There will happen, definitely.
Okay, can you behave this time or not?
No, absolutely not. No.
No.
Okay.
So, yeah, we'll be talking about, what we're going to be talking about, Dunkirk and the Game of Thrones, the latest episode in season 7, and Trainspotting. We'll be taking a look back at the film Trainspotting from, what year, 96? 96, that's what it says on my cheat sheet here.
Yeah.
Didn't just pull that out of my brain. So let's firstly have a look at Dunkirk, the film from Christopher Nolan, right? Just released few weeks ago here in Germany. But
Yeah,
it's been out for a few months
Yeah.
in the normal world. So
No, I think it was pretty close. It was all in July.
was it?
Yes.
Let's not argue over release date. So Dunkirk, I'm sure you know the story of Dunkirk. The British and French troops got surrounded by the Axis forces in Dunkirk, on the beaches of Dunkirk in 1940, and then there was an epic extraction mission to get all those soldiers out. Lots of people still died, and it was quite tragic in many ways and gory and awful, but it's kind of seen as a moment in British and French history of incredible phlegm and stiff upper lip and fighting against all odds, etc, etc. So yeah, the film by Christopher Nolan kind of focuses more on individual stories of individual soldiers, I would say, rather than a broader picture that may have been, I think, maybe provided by earlier films. Were there a couple of earlier films about Dunkirk?
Not a lot, but like I think
There were
one
two
or two.
different ones.
There was one English film, I think, in the and 50s. Even.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
1958 or something, and then there's also a French, kind of obscure French satire comedy from the 70s.
Okay.
But that's really from the French perspective.
Right.
And then you have, I think 2 years ago or something, you have like a BBC show,
Something like that.
which was with Benedict Cumberbatch and all the kind of big names.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it was more. It looked more like a reenactment than this show, but interesting.
Yeah. So we got in it. Cillian Murphy playing a downed pilot, right?
Yeah, it's a Spitfire pilot.
Harry Styles came out of what's it? One Direction. I didn't realise it was Harry until the end, actually. So that was good, right?
Yeah.
Like he was actually useful. He was a useful musician, unlike Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, but Ed was
so-
singing. Harry Styles wasn't.
Yeah, but Harry Styles did some acting, didn't he? Tom Hardy, he's in it, being Tom Hardy, and being a hotshot pilot, right? Just his eyes, most of it. He loves having a thing over his mouth.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah, I just heard him. They're giving it back to you, the people. Yeah, I haven't heard him say that, in the Spitfire.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. But maybe I was the only one.
Yeah, it
Was that a line from Batman?
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you like my Bane impersonation? Yes. That. Yeah.
Mark Rylance being a kindly a boat captain, skipper, civilian man, because lots of ships were requisitioned by the Navy to go and aid in the rescue. efforts, the evacuation efforts.
Yes.
A stiff upper lip, or
Hey?
no. Did he have a stiff upper lip?
Did he have? I didn't check the stiffness.
No.
That's it.
I wondered why you were talking like this. Okay, so what did we think about Dunkirk then? Or, yeah? No?
Yeah,
I thought it was good.
I found it very impressive. I was literally on the edge of my seat, like literally.
Mm-hmm.
There was a line in my bum afterwards. Right?
Yeah,
That's pretty effective.
No, but I would say that the word impressive is definitely a good word to describe the film, I think. And I found it interesting to read up on it afterwards, you know, the things that they did, you know, to also make the tension so palpable, you know what I mean? Like, from the small things like Hans Zimmer's soundtrack that has a ticking clock in it, from the beginning till they get on the train. You know, it doesn't stop until they get on the train, so that's pretty cool. So, but also that Nolan watched a lot of silent films to see how they build tension using details, because when it's silent film you cannot use other things to build tension. So they use, you know, really like tiny details to build tension slowly but subtly. So that's what he did as well to create this tension. He basically looked at like 5 or 6 specific silent films to see how they did that.
Yeah.
And he also said, for example, that the tension that you have in Saving Private Ryan, a film that he also loved, he didn't want that kind of tension. He wanted totally something to be a different kind of tension. And I think that he definitely achieved, you know, having that tension created in a different way than just, you know, an Apocalypse Now kind of mayhem kind of thing, because that's not what he went for, of course. So that's what
It might have also been historically incorrect in that sense.
Yeah.
Because it was not like partly a slaughter on the beach.
There were still a lot of people died. A lot of people died still.
But probably historically seen not in the same way as what
Of
happened
course.
on the Normandy
Normandy
beaches.
beaches. That's absolutely true. So
Might ask for a different stylistic choices
Mhm,
during
mhm.
scenario.
which he also, I think did consciously, but impressive was really the worst word that came to mind for me, and it was like I seen a couple of reviews, you know, people saying that it might have been really realistic, but it also made it boring. That were the detractors of the film.
Boring?
Yeah, because one reviewer in particular said, if you would make a TV show about cops and you make it super realistic, then 70% of the show would be administration, and that would be super realistic, but it would be boring. And he compared that to Dunkirk. It might be super realistic, you know, because they took a couple of Dunkirk veterans to the cinema and they said it was really accurate, but it also made it boring, and I didn't feel that at all.
I disagree entirely.
Yeah, I disagree entirely, because that's not fair, because if you're talking about cops doing administration, then you would say the soldiers are waiting. You know, the soldiers are waiting for rescue, and you would film them while they're waiting.
Yeah, exactly. There wasn't at the bottom of the waiting. You did get that feeling of the bottom a tiny bit, but most of the time it's just this tension is being ratcheted out. I thought the whole time, I didn't know how it could be boring.
I think the only way that it could be boring is that there's not a lot of in-depth personal character. You know, there's lots of jumping back and forth to all the different characters. There's no arch of any one character. It's all just different characters. And the movie's a little bit shorter than normal, isn't it? It was like one.
Yeah. I honestly felt like I was in there forever, because I think because of the stress. I was constantly stressed, and it wasn't like a bad stress. It was that this is a tiny glimpse of what it might be like to be in a war, and I felt like maybe I haven't seen that many war films, but I felt like this is the most accurate war film I've seen, because I feel just so. I felt exhausted afterwards.
You were immersed.
I was and that must be like what it feels like to have this constant. The adrenaline just constantly there, and cortisone like constantly, and I think to address that point where there isn't that in-depth maybe character development, or even looking back into the stories of characters, like say for instance you got in Saving Private Ryan where it gave a bit of backstory. I think that's how the soldiers would have experienced it. You would have met some guy on the beach who was also in trouble. You don't have time to learn about his life story, right?
I think it's more realistic.
Right, so it's kind of more realistic in that sense.
I think also, if you compare it to Saving Private Ryan, they are doing a campaign, so they were not waiting there. I think the evacuation of Dunkirk was about 10 days, So that was already very short. Everybody was trying to survive, so you're probably not talking about your personal details or whatever. But I mean, the campaign which was portrayed in Saving Private Ryan, we keep comparing it to this movie, which is interesting in that sense too. They were on a campaign, so they were for months together. But it is a different way of showing the duration than in Dunkirk. That's something it's very effective in Dunkirk, but I think Dunkirk has actually a lot of storytelling. But what a lot of people are very, very used to, and it's also in modern movies, and it's in the movies from the 40s and 50s, is that people talk a lot. People have a lot of dialogues, they have monologues, and in this movie maybe more like what people in the silent era were used to is a lot more telling story or showing details by basically using montage and camera movements.
Yeah.
So one of the things also I think was pretty brilliant in that sense is if you talk about the duration of the people that were involved in all of this.
Because it wasn't like linear, right?
No, exactly. It was perfectly cut and interwoven, I think, and in that sense, some people found it a little bit complicated, but it did that to show that it didn't last as long for everybody involved. So the soldiers on the beach, they were there for about 10 days. For the fighter pilots, they only had 1 hour of fuel. So for them, the whole Dunkirk situation only lasted 1 hour, and then they had to get back, for example. And the people on the boat, for example, it took them 19 hours to cross the channel. So that's why it felt he edited it like that. And also one of the things he did was normally in the third act of a film, you have like. If you look at the character arcs, then it comes to sort of like a climax. And what he did was from the beginning, he had that kind of development and tension for each character that normally only have in the third act. Every character had a tension from the beginning of the film to the end of the film.
Yeah.
And that's also why I think everybody's so exhausted, because normally what you see, that amount of tension, you only get it in the film in the final act. And now you have to watch 3 acts of that amount of tension. And that's exhausting.
So in a sense, he breaks a rule. He breaks film rules, and also as a war movie, it stands out because not a lot of war movies have this kind of non-linear storytelling. And that's one of the most interesting things. If you look more from a distance to the movie,
which is typical of Nolan, we were talking about, right?
It's also because he did that. Then he was, if you could say. If you watch his other films, you were already partly trained for this kind of storytelling, because Inception uses it, but it uses it more to he does it in the third act, so with the van falling in the water, and then there's another layer, there's another layer. He doesn't really do that with the Batman movies, I suppose. But a thing like Memento, that's that is his breakthrough movie. He is so much obsessed with the user, what time is and how you experience it, but then translate it into film language. And he does this. It's very impressive.
There were some details that people, I know some people were a bit dissatisfied with. For instance, apparently the Spitfire would only have 12 seconds of firepower.
Oh, okay, I didn't read that.
Yeah, they have very, very little. So you could fire like shh, that's all you could do at one time.
Okay.
Because you had 12 seconds of that.
Wow. Okay.
Right.
So then you have to go back to the base?
And then you're done with your
ammunition.
Because the ammunition is going to be really heavy, right? And Spitfires have to be maneuverable, so they can't carry that much.
I felt there was a little bit of that. I thought like, when is he going to run out of bullets? That's one question that did pop in my mind.
And then apparently, I think he was hit a couple of times by one of the turrets. On a bomber, and I think if you were hit by one of those, you're not like your plane's just going to go down because they're big bullets, those proper turrets and things, the Memphis Belle style ones. And also, that there was a bit at the end where Tom Hardy he manages to down another fighter pilot while gliding.
No, but you laugh at it, but I read that it was actually really accurate for 2 reasons. One is that actually happened like that.
Really?
And 2, they said like the Germans, I didn't know that, but the Germans used these not Stuka, but what's it called? Like, is it something divers?
Stuka.
Stuka divers. Yeah, and that noise that they make that was an added. The siren is an added thing to terrorize soldiers because it doesn't have to make that noise at all.
Yeah.
But the funny thing is that they were super terrifying and everything, but especially when they were in a diving maneuver, they were super easy target. So apparently that's why a gliding plane could shoot it like that, because apparently they're really easy to shoot down. And after World War II, I think, or even already halfway through, they became less and less popular because they were terrifying, but they were just sitting ducks. They were easy targets. So I don't know why, I'm not very technical, but apparently those divers were super easy targets.
Yeah.
And that last scene really accurately showed how easy it was to shoot those things out of the sky. So.
And then he decides to land it, and I thought, just eject, Tom Hardy.
Yeah, but
eject.
It's also,
apparently that's just pilot mentality. I'm not leaving this bloody thing.
Yeah, but I do think there are these undercurrents of being kind of glorious in defeat. That's for me also kind of a sort of a British image, like being sort of like, I'm looking at you because you are British. That's a bit mean. I had that feeling sometimes. Also at the end in the
my
train.
entire football career.
But were you like thinking of bits like after the go UK after the film?
You know what? Embarrassingly, I did feel a bit like.
But that's
I felt sort of patriotic feelings.
Okay.
Well, not pride, but like I don't know. Just I think also at the end the soldiers are given some pasties, and that's from my region. I think they go to Dorset or something. I'm from Devon, but and they give them pasties. And they're drinking Newcastle ale on the.
You turn up a little bit.
Yeah, it's like home, England, my England. And then they're playing Elgar at the end, right then.
Yeah.
There's an Elgar score, and it was very emotional for me. I don't know how it was for you guys.
But those are very conscious choices to use those things. So I think
Absolutely.
there is an undercurrent of kind of choosing the underdog at this moment and showing some sort of glory in defeat. And you could also say that is again, continuing the myth of which was created by.
Is it Brexit cinema? That's
no,
the question.
I'm not saying, but I'm not going there yet. But it's already like what Churchill did and his ministries. They kind of created out of this situation also propaganda. That was clear because
they did of the English did up a little bit.
They were down on their ass.
And failure,
the sort of moral victory thing didn't exist. In that sense, before that happened.
Yeah.
I do think that Nolan, he kind of buys into that. I think he could be much more critical about it, but he does it very well. But he also chooses it. He seems to choose it. Like he does this, historical inaccuracies, like the Stukas. They have a yellow. How do you say yellow font? Yellow. But according to the historians, they only use that after what he said. So the audience can see the difference between the fighter planes better. Yeah. So he admits to these historical inaccuracies for his artistic vision.
But I'm sorry to jump in there. But did he also consciously choose, because that's another controversy I heard that I didn't know about, is that to not show any Indian and African soldiers even though they were there?
Were they?
Yes. Especially in Indians, there were like
and 3
soldiers. Yeah. Well, okay. The French. The French were there and they were talked about. But some people said the French could have been in there more, and they could have said something about the fact that the French were keeping the Nazis at bay, or the German forces in Lille. Yeah. And if they wouldn't have, then disaster would have happened as well. That could have been mentioned. But also there were practically 3. I don't know what the size was. 3 units, battalions, whatever, of Indian soldiers that were never shown. Yes, but there were also Africans and another ethnic group of soldiers there, and you don't see that at all.
That is, but. Then again, Kenneth Branagh stayed for the French at the end. Yeah. So that is kind of at least you have the Shakespeare.
Yeah, but it disappoints me. But it disappoints me because I really like Nolan, but I don't understand the reasons for not showing the Indian.
Why would you not?
Like maybe there were not a lot of African soldiers, even though my girlfriend Juliana said that she did see some black soldiers. I didn't see them, but she did.
Yeah, I think on the French side actually. I think there was on the French side, and which is kind of strange because clearly also the British army was a colonial. Yeah. It was very much a colonial army.
Yeah. So I don't understand why he chose not to portray that.
Maybe I don't know. I'm now kind of thinking of the last episode we talked about. I have a little bit of a beguiled vibe here now. So there's like sort of, if I touch this, I need to kind of, do well again. So it is, I do agree. It's a bit strange why it would not be weird to have, people with different color. It was the historical reality.
Exactly, and the film is so historically accurate, and it makes a film that breaks certain war movie tropes.
Yeah.
And like in every World War II film, you never see any ethnic diversity, even though there were black soldiers in World War II.
Yeah.
And you never see them except for the Spike Lee film no one has seen. I haven't seen this World War II movie either. But and then I thought then let Nolan break that, trope, break the mold and put them in there, but he also doesn't do it. I don't know.
It was different though for the United States Army. But I think for the English Army,
No, but that's what I mean, because nobody knows, because they've never seen it, but they had Native Americans in the American Army. Only the Wind Talkers film, I haven't seen that one either, apparently shows them. There are black soldiers in the American Army during World War II, but you never see that. It's disappointing.
It also makes me, there was this, the movie Atonement. Do you guys know the movie?
Yeah, of course.
Now, there's this 8-minute long tracking shot which portrays Dunkirk.
Brilliant shot.
And it's a brilliant shot, and referring to there were lots of other people from colonies, former colonies.
Yeah.
They show it there, and that's a movie
That's
from
true.
2007, I think.
Good point. Yeah.
That is kind of if you want to go into the identity politics, that is kind of a miss, I would say.
Yeah. Disappointing because I really love Nolan, and his brother even more so. I think he's also really brilliant, but that's one minor blemish for me personally on one of the best war films I've ever seen.
Okay, so any final thoughts, guys, on Dunkirk?
Well, for me, like I said, one of the best war movies I've ever seen. Harry Styles didn't bother me at all. I definitely want to see it again. I mean, I've learned a lot as well because I didn't know much about Dunkirk, and great, definitely.
Right.
Yeah, it was one of the most immersive film experiences from the latest 10 years, and it's something. It's not a normal war movie. War movies it's a genre on itself. I am a little bit afraid, like, how will it fare after being out of the cinema when it's going to smaller screens. But I will check that out because I will see it a third time.
Definitely very good. I definitely want to see it again, and very intense, very, very intense when you're watching the whole thing, and then like they've said, it's one of the best war movies. I don't like war movies in general, but this was really good and intense.
Okay, so positive reaction all round. That was Dunkirk. Now let's move on to Game of Thrones, Season 7, Episode 4, The Spoils of War.
Yes. Directed by Matt Shakman, his debut for Game of Thrones. I know him because he did a really psychedelic Mad Men episode. He's also done 6 Feet Under, The Good Wife, and he's a big TV guy. I could name 10 more TV shows he's done. But I'm happy to welcome him to the Game of Thrones family. Job well done.
He's doing the next one as well, I read.
Correct, yeah. Written by the showrunners, Dan and Dave, aka David Benioff and D.B. Weiss. Rotten Tomatoes. It's funny, like every time I check Rotten Tomatoes, after one day it's still at 100%. And then, like 2 days later, it's down to 97.
It's never. A Game of Thrones thing is never going to get less than 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, right?
Well, I think there's an episode or two that go down to like 83% or something.
Yeah.
It happens, though. But generally speaking, you're absolutely right. And on IMDb, there's a whopping 9.9. The grades are a little bit higher at IMDb, but 9.9 is still special for IMDb. It is definitely. Now, and what happens? Well, Disco Inferno, and other than that, Arya comes home, and dragons, basically, or one dragon actually.
No, more stuff happens than that, right?
Oh, okay, yes, more happens, yes,
but that was the most important part.
Yeah.
So what do we have? What do we have? We have Daenerys. She gets a bit stroppy. right, again, like last time, she gets a bit moody.
Yes.
Right.
There is sexual tension between
Between
John
her and John, yeah.
because they know they need to get the ice and fire together.
Oh, nice, yeah.
I
Melt some of that
I hope
ice.
for a cave scene.
Oh, yes, please. Right, so,
Going
Jon
down,
Snow.
going down on his knee.
Okay, so basically what happens, Danny, let's recap it quickly. So Danny and John, they go to the cave as well where he shows her the dragon glass and the paintings on the wall. You know, that sort of proves that the Night King is real and that the first men and the children of the forest fought the Night King together, even though the children of the forest and the first men were bitter enemies. So then Danny says, okay, I will fight for the North only if you bend the knee, which I roll everywhere, at least in my house.
Yes.
So then they hear the bad news about everything that happened, in Highgarden, etc., and that the Lannisters left Castle Rock unprotected on purpose, or not unprotected, but skeleton crew over there. Then he is pissed off at everyone, especially Tyrion, and she asks Jon for advice, but he tells her not to, burn down the Red Keep, which is strange advice, I think, but we'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
She even says, like, "Are you still a Lannister?"
Yes, that was really uncalled for.
It's interesting. It's interesting because later in the episode, he looks at all the dying soldiers, which are basically.
And you can kind of see the pain in his face as well.
Not even kind of, like really.
For his brother.
So what else happens? We've got
and then we
Mira saying goodbye to Bran.
Yeah, at the Starks again.
Really cold. Like he's super emotional. I'm a heart broke for Mira, I must say. But that was sort of bad. Now Arya came home, of course. Also sort of an awkward reunion with Sansa, and also with Bran, of course, who was also equally cold to her. But she did end up getting a dragon glass dagger, so that's always
it's not all bad.
Flaring steel dagger,
Flaring
steel dagger, but it's always a good thing to have. They will discuss the whole strange Littlefinger thing, but Bran doesn't really care about Littlefinger or about anything anymore because he's not really Bran anymore, he says. Then what happens? Arya has a sparring scene with Brienne, of course.
Cool.
I like
cool.
that.
Nice.
Then we go to also King's Landing with what's her name, Cersei and the Iron Bank guy.
Well played by Mark Gatiss, I thought. I like it. Do you not like it? Do you think it's a caricature? Do you think it's...
He went a little bit too clown-ishy for me because the Iron Bank is not like that. The Iron Bank, it's not gonna. It should be like sort of like more formal, and of course like he can have an opinion, but no, it was a little bit too much like. He was almost giddy almost.
More like a front-footer banker. You just need to be sharp.
Exactly.
No fucking.
I think they're trying to make a point about bankers or something, aren't they?
He is a Frankfurt banker with unlimited power. That's what, or not unlimited, but like with a lot more power than the Frankfurt banker actually has.
Slick back hair, but it didn't have any hair.
And so Tycho, whatever, was a little bit too much, but fine, the actor, I like him, but more like, whatever, even though I haven't seen Sherlock.
I was a little bit surprised by this exchange. So they had this war profits, and there was all they had from the Tyrells, and it was enough for all their debts. It was like
that's a good point.
everything. I was like a little bit like
that's also
the Tyrells had that.
A little bit like American economics or something. So they invade a country.
So what else did we have? We can talk about that. But
so to finish off the recap. So Jaime and his army come back with the loot, of course. The gold actually makes it to the Red Keep, but they need to deal with the stragglers and the grain. Some people overlooked it, but Lord Charlie says, the gold is in the gates, so let's deal with the stragglers.
Yeah.
So the gold makes it, but then they hear something, and that's like super beautiful. Then first they hear the Kalasar, then they see the Kalasar. And then they brace for impact, they form up brace for impact, and the moment that you think like, okay, they're gonna get hit, then there's Drogon and Dany. And Disco Inferno, so beautiful. Yeah. But they have a secret weapon, and they manage to hurt Drogon, and Jaime's idiot tries to...
Why would he do that?
Try to attack the, undefended Dany, who's not paying attention. But Drogon, of course, is Drogon, and dragons are magical, so obviously he's going to notice something, and then he ends up in the sea, getting sunk by his armor, basically.
Okay.
So that's what happened in the episode. So what did we?
That's what did happen in the episode.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so we probably should deal with the. Let's go backwards then. Let's look at the battle. Yeah. What's the battle called? What are they going to call it?
I don't know. I was going to kind of call it the Battle of Blackwater Bay, maybe Battle of Blackwater Bay Part 2 or something, the sequel. I don't know what they're going to call it, but I thought it was. First of all, we have to, say no other TV show has pulled it off, and this looks better than a lot of films. I mean, like people complain that they don't have enough direwolves in the show. That's true, but it's too expensive. But like if they don't do direwolves, but put that much money in dragons and it looks like that, then I'm on board. Okay, I want to know where John's direwolf is too, just as much as anyone.
Yeah.
But this was just spectacular. I mean, it was greatly filmed. The choreography was good. I just loved it, but also like the sort of the details, like one of you mentioned already, like how Tyrion, also seeing like his own people sort of burn and suffer and getting slaughtered. Jaime also still being clearly affected by what Olenna told him, things like that, and Bronn making jokes like, hey, why are you brooding so much and this and that, and did the Queen of Thorns, if you find pricked you in your balls before she went. I don't know, he said it much nicer, but things like that. So I think it was overall, I think, very good. And the Kalasar, I mean the Traki on standing on their horses and shooting arrows and shit, like I mean the stunt people, like amazing. And for a TV show,
the action scenes were very good.
Yeah. And so what do we think about the events in? Let's look at. I'm mumbling all over the place here. Yes. I don't know what we can look at. So let's look at. What do we think of Bran, guys? Let's go back to Bran. I mean, we're kind of jumping all over the place here, but we can do speculation at the end.
Okay.
I don't want to make this just speculation. Let's talk about what actually happened. Right.
Well, Bran, I think it's a good take on him. I think because being a three-eyed raven does something to him. And like they sort of try to portray like all the visions, all the knowledge he has, and the adjusting to becoming the three-eyed raven has a toll on his personality, obviously, and it's kind of pushing his personality of Bran out and him fully turning into the three-eyed raven. And I think that's a good take, I think, on that character. And also in general, everything that happened in Winterfell is like they've been away from there so long, and they've all equally separately been to so much, that we all want that big Hollywood tearful reunion, and they're all best friends again. But I think that it's sort of like realistic that it wouldn't really go like that. I mean, all of them have been to so much stuff separately that like that reunion, it was never going to be perfect in the first place. Now throw into it that Bran is a freaking three-eyed raven, and knows everything and shit, then that also doesn't make it any easier. So in that sense, I like their take that they're having on Bran.
So Arya's returned.
Mm-hmm. Arya's returned, indeed.
To Winterfell.
Yes, and also with a whole backstory, like lots of suffering, like Sansa and Bran. They're all suffering a lot. But what I do notice between Arya and Bran, that they're both kind of connected to more
magic.
Yes, magic. They're clearly connected. There is something with the Starks. Also, Jon Snow, basically. I mean, everybody in the scenes and among the other families, they're glancing over it. But he came back from life. It's basically sort of a Jesus figure.
Back to life.
Back to life. Back from life. Yes. Back to life. So that's what's interesting. So all these things you can't really explain, and then they come together, and then they try to be the sisters and brothers, but it clearly doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking like Bran is the most obvious example, but also Arya and Sansa,
basically
they hug and they find solace with each other, but Arya, I think Arya is pretty much fucked up.
Yeah, but it's also like sort of a deer hunter. I've never seen it.
Also, her reaction is.
Yeah.
But sort of like the deer hunter kind of thing, right? I mean, that coming home from the war, like you don't have anything to talk about with your family, your friends, because they don't understand you, because you're just coming back from Vietnam, and you just don't click with them anymore.
It's not reality.
Yeah, and that's I think with Arya as well. Like she hugs him, like you said with Sansa, but there's
she has a better connection at that moment with
Bram?
yeah, with the great fighter.
Oh,
Yeah,
Brienne.
Brienne.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because she's become that.
And
Yeah.
she's basically become that.
A bit harder and not a little girl anymore.
Yeah.
How old is she supposed to be?
Yeah,
Who?
in the series.
Are you?
Yeah.
Well, in the TV show, I think she would be, I think around, I don't know, 14 or something like that. But in the book, she would be even younger. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but just to take a step back from what actually happened, and what do you think about the acting in this episode?
The acting in the episode.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed by Emily Clark and Kit Harington, because that Ice and Fire needs to burn. Needs also
Needs to click a bit
needs
more.
to click a bit
Yeah.
more. I mean, I'm not saying because of the characters, because it's gonna go one of those ways. But also they are the big the big guys in the
There's no
episode. And
chemistry.
their acting is sometimes a bit flat.
Yeah.
Is to be that is one of the things which I don't really like
I agree, and
about the recent episodes.
I always thought.
But is that because the characters are a bit flat? Are the characters essentially a bit too
Yeah,
big?
but like, well, I think you're
Yeah,
right. It's a little bit of the writing as well. But for me, like Kit Harington, for me was from the beginning one of the weakest actors of the entire ensemble, and Emilia Clarke has grown a lot, even though like her Emmy nominations are not deserved, I think. But she's also not the greatest actor of the cast by far. I mean, if you take, for example, Conrad Hill, who plays Varys, he can act her under the table, and he's not the only one. You know.
Yeah,
what I mean?
he's
Yeah.
really,
And,
really
and,
good.
and,
Yeah.
and possibly, like, I mean, if Emilia Clarke asked me if I would marry her, sorry, Juliana, then I'd probably say yes, but like, it would make her a great actress.
Yeah.
You know,
I think the one who was in this episode especially was the actor who plays Jamie Lannister.
yeah, Nikolai, but he's been one of the strongest from the beginning.
Yes.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's
Right, he-
fantastic.
yeah.
you see this doubt in his face, and he just does it with his face.
Yeah.
He doesn't really need. I mean, the lines can be very strong, but there's still, there's still other things.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
was one of the things I'm like, okay.
Because the entire
9.9. I don't know. You also have to look at other things than. I mean, the cinematography and the montage is all as expected.
I'm looking forward to seeing the Hound again, guys.
Oh yeah.
They miss him, don't you?
I did miss him because that's a really great character, and I love any redemption anyway, right? So I'm liking, Jamie's kind of redeemed himself a bit, and he's showing his lighter side. He's going from dark to light, although he's kind of gone swaying back a bit. So it's interesting seeing that ambiguity.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then we've got, because he's kind of swaying back to Cersei and being under her influence again. Although he obviously is very reluctant to do a lot of things. Like it showed in this episode where the Tali, Sam's dad, he says, "Oh
Flog
yeah,
the
we can
stragglers."
flog the stragglers," and he's like, "Nah, give him a bit of warning first."
Yeah.
Because they did, it did help them take Highgarden like a couple of days ago, right? And
Yeah.
so they got to flog him like the next minute.
Exactly, right?
So that was true, and also I think in the fact that he doesn't leave them, because like he's a commander, like Bronn told him, he's a commander.
Yeah.
He's not a freaking soldier.
Yeah.
But like an infantryman. So by every right, he could have just went back to the Red Keep and say, okay, I'll hear from it tomorrow what happened,
Yeah.
But, he stays with them, and actually, even more so, he tries to end the war right there, by trying to kill Daenerys, because if he succeeds,
Oh yeah.
normally
that's over.
speaking, the war is over,
Yeah.
so, I mean,
Yeah, that would be.
like they have to deal with the North then, for
Yeah.
example, but other than that, the war's over if they succeed, so.
On that note, with Jamie, if we go to the obvious question, is Jamie dead? He's definitely not dead.
No.
He's definitely not dead.
No.
Because he's too important to the fans. He's also too important to Daenerys, because if Daenerys saves him or has him saved or something, he stays alive and she can use him as a bargaining chip.
Again.
Right?
Well,
Yeah.
but I must say that I think that
Look,
some people hate the show, or I'm sure think that they are raping the book series, but I don't think that, obviously, but I do think you have to give him a little bit more credit. So I don't think that they would refrain from killing off Jamie because he is too important to defend. I don't think they think like that. But one of the things that I thought was maybe a little bit too much on the nose is when Sansa and Arya are talking in the Crypts of Winterfell, and they talk about that their stories are not over yet because we only have 10 more episodes to go in total, or 9 actually, and so for me, I start thinking about whose story is done. Like for example, the Sand Snakes and Eladia, like their story is done. We're not going to see them again, even though we haven't seen them die on screen. It's done. But Jaime's story isn't over yet, I think, because one, he hasn't fully redeemed himself, and two, he needs to do something with the information that he got from Olenna, and three, he will not die before he, actually talks with Tyrion. No way.
And there needs to be a conflict for Cersei as well.
Exactly.
Right?
So Tyrion, Cersei, and Jaime will meet before either of them dies, or any of them dies. So story-wise, their story isn't over yet. Just like Sansa and Arya said, their story isn't over yet. Bron's story could have been over, so he could die.
So here's why I think, he gets put in because he's very popular, right? Yeah. And I think that's why I was talking with a friend, and she reckoned that's why he was in control of the of the big ballista thing, yeah, because he's kind of a neutral character, really. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't it didn't have any implication that he was doing that. He was just doing it just because he wanted it to end, right? Yeah.
And he's one character that's actually in there because he's so popular. He's actually in there for that reason. Yeah. I think he's going to play a role when the Lannister siblings get reunited. He's going to play a role because, he first was, of course, Tyrion's guy, before he went to Jaime. So he's also going to stay alive, I think. Until that reunion.
See, I was thinking, it's almost definitely him that saved Jaime, right, from the flames of the dragon. And I was thinking what would happen is that he somehow helps, because he wasn't wearing armour, he doesn't wear armour, right, I don't think.
He was wearing leather.
Yeah, and so he will help Jaime to get his armour off, I think, to help Jaime swim up, and he will somehow sacrifice himself.
You think so?
I think he'll sacrifice himself. Because he's always been so selfish.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, a moment of altruism.
Yeah. For me, I think, but for me, he's a character that would end in a battle or at the end of an episode, and the episode's not gonna end with Jaime, I think, or could be, but I don't see it ending per se. I don't think it would be spectacular enough. It could be true what you're saying. I don't think he's gonna die that way.
I mean, that is an interesting theory, dying against your character. Because
talking of the story arcs ending, how about Littlefinger? It feels like maybe his is ending, or maybe it isn't.
No, the thing is,
his influence is almost that it's run out, right?
Well, that's the thing. He's super useless and he's basically boring.
I know there are among some fans he's absolutely They say they hate the character.
No, the thing is,
I like to hate
the acting.
I like that.
Yeah, but the thing is,
like the acting.
He's going to do something really annoying before he goes. I don't think he's going to be there till the very end per se, but his end is not there yet. Because he's been sitting his ass in Winterfell doing nothing now for the entire season. Mm-hmm. So something is going to have to change there. So
he's going to be killed by Arya. This is. I think it's what's going to happen with that dagger that she got.
Spectacularly, or just in his sleep or something.
I do
just this.
And then just okay, you're dead. Bye.
I do have this. There's also this strange feeling of him always talking about I loved your mother. And now he's, of course, he's basically in love with Sansa, but he also talks everything what your mother was for was to protect the family, to be with you, and I'm gonna do that. It creeps me out.
Yeah.
It creeps me out, but it's also kind of within his story are kind of logical, and I do think something needs to happen.
I guess we do need some kind of tension within Winterfell, because otherwise they're all on the same side.
But the thing is, that he said it to Jon doesn't make any sense, because in the books he's one of the most cunning people out there, and nobody knows what he actually wants.
But he might have said it in order to enrage Jon, to provoke him to do
what
something.
end? What does he gain by saying something that stupid?
To provoke Jon to do something in order that he can sort of justifiably retaliate, because he still has his troops from his soldiers, doesn't he?
Yeah,
he does. Yeah. For the Knights of the Vale, yes.
Yeah.
I hope that's the reason, because it was really dumb otherwise. So I really don't.
I feel that this episode was clearly, again, this sort of starting starting to kick in, like the high gear.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also around the middle, because now there are only 7 episodes.
Yeah.
And now things are going to be going towards a final, being wrapped up for this season.
Yeah. If Aya dies this season, I'm out. Actually, if Aya dies before the last episode, I'm out. I'm just going to quit.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah. Brienne will die the penultimate episode of the whole thing, I think. This is my prediction.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Her story is sort of over now. Now that both girls have come back to Winterfell, both of them are safe. I mean, so yeah, I can see that.
She's still got to bone the ginger wildling. That's part of her story. Bone him.
Yeah, I'm going to say something
Come
absolutely
on.
crazy, but I think that Jon Snow and Daenerys are going to be each other's death.
Yeah, probably.
No, I don't think so.
First they're going to hook up, and then they're going to
Yeah, but that's my problem because
fucking each other's mission up, and then then you need another force to stop the Night King.
But the thing is, like you were saying,
to the prehistoric ages.
you were saying about the sexual tension between them. I was happy when they met for the first time that there was no sexual tension, but now it's there, and I'm like, okay, if it's there, then they're actually going to go there. But like, I'm like, do they need to have another incest story? I mean, she's his aunt, like she doesn't know it yet. So now I'm curious, how are they going to do it? So or is he going to find out and he's going to go there anyway?
Has Bran already told him? That's the question.
Yeah, no, he hasn't told him, that's for sure. But you know, like, so is he going to find out before he actually goes there, or do they first go there and then they find out in retrospect and then they're going to, stop the relationship? I don't want either. Actually, I don't want them to go there. I don't need more incest in the show per se. And it's also going to be a little bit, I don't know, corny is a strong word, but I don't need them to fall in love. I need them to work together.
Yeah, but
I don't need them to fall in love.
If they work together, that's also part of their positions in the world, and they might have to fuck to make a strong marriage. It sounds weird, but that happened within the.
It's still lovely, but we've got another film to talk
No, but
about.
wait, I have to say one thing about that. But they don't, because the moment that he knows that he's a Targaryen, he loses the North, and Sansa becomes, a queen in the North. And so then they don't have to marry for the political alliance anymore, because he doesn't have the North anymore. The moment they found he's Targaryen, the North are not going to accept him as king in the North anymore.
Okay, there we have it. So it won't happen.
The North's shit anyway, didn't they? That it's boring.
It's cold.
It's really cold. It's boring.
It's got dead guys in the back.
It's like the North of England.
Hey,
No, it's not Scandinavia or anything. It's not like a great welfare state.
Insult my team. I'm Team Stark, baby.
No, I like the Starks from the North. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Let's just end on some final thoughts from Nicole.
Awesome dragons. I'm glad that we got to see dragons finally blowing and making people on fire, and that was awesome. That was probably my favorite, and lots of action.
Great.
Sadist.
I know. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great. Now, I actually, just a final thing. I really liked the interaction with Aya and the guards, because that was really naturalistic.
Mm-hmm.
That was really naturalistic, and for me, it was like really British style speak.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Aya Stark, fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
It was so good.
Yeah.
And I want to see more of that, of the normal people having a chat, but not Ed Sheeran. So
You're going to mention him every episode.
yeah, we have to mention Ed Sheeran. Ed Sheeran wasn't in this episode. Okay, so that was episode 4 of season 7 of Game of Thrones. Only 3 left. We're over halfway to the end of this season, right?
Yes.
Bloody hell.
Yes.
Okay, moving at breakneck speed. So, moving on to Trainspotting. We're just turning back the clock to 1996. Trainspotting by Danny Boyle, which is actually chosen by Nicole.
Yes, it
So,
was.
give it to us.
Yeah.
Well, you said it was directed by Danny Boyle. It was written by John Hodge, who also wrote The Beach. And it has some great actors in it. Edmund McGregor, yeah.
Ewan.
Yeah, I really like that. You know the guy.
The guy, yes.
I'm not going to be able to say any of these other names.
Ewan Brenner,
Johnny Lee Miller, and Robert
Carlyle,
and
Kelly MacDonald,
she was
Kelly
only in
McKay.
that for a little bit, but yeah.
I like Kelly MacDonald, okay?
Yes.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying.
Why are you against Kelly MacDonald?
I'm not against.
Stop being against Kelly.
No.
What was Kelly MacDonald in recently?
Boardwalk
Boardwalk
Empire.
Empire, very good.
Oh,
Apart
really?
from that, there
I
was
don't
another
like
thing she
that
was
show.
in. She was
Yeah.
definitely in a film, I think. In a film.
Go on the train? No, not Go on the
No.
Train.
No, go on.
But
Go with something. It was
Girl
a
with
breakout
dragon
film
tattoo?
role.
No, I don't know.
no idea. But she was, she's good. She's great.
I do not like her.
Yeah.
And Rotten Tomatoes still has a 90%, so it's a classic, I think. And they just came out with Trainspotting 2, which I haven't watched yet.
I haven't seen
But,
it either.
I'm still
I'm
still
still-
confused by the title T too. It's like
It was deliberate.
I know it's deliberate, but it's
It's
just
just
It was deliberate to sound like Terminator 2.
Seriously?
Yeah.
And then Terminator 2 has in the subtitle is called Judgment Day. Yeah, so that makes sense.
Yeah.
The day for the characters here.
But tell us, what is Trainspotting about for the 3 people on the planet who don't know?
well, it's a story about drugs and some guys that do a lot of drugs and trying to get out of drugs and into drugs and then kind of screwing each other over a little bit. But spoiler. And no, I think that I don't know. I like this movie. I think it's not easy to watch. I think it's very difficult to watch. I think I've only seen it 3 times, and every time I watched it, I just it probably hits a little bit too close to home for me. So yeah, it's too intense, and it's good. Like Requiem for a Dream as well. It's the same. They're just really, really intense movies, and yeah.
Well, it was based on it's the 90s Edinburgh / Leith drug scene,
Yeah.
right? Particularly with heroin,
Yeah.
right? And then AIDS is also rife, and it's
Based
based on the novel, which is based
Yeah.
on the experiences of the writer. What's the writer called? I can remember.
Of the novel?
Purifying Welsh.
Irving Welsh. Yeah,
Irving
that's
Welsh.
it. Yeah, Irving Welsh's
Yeah.
experiences. So
There was before the movie there was a play
Correct.
and Spot, the actor who played Spot in the movie played the character who was played in Trainspotting by Ewan McGregor.
okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, I didn't know that.
That's
I didn't know there was so many.
Yeah, the
Yeah,
adaptations,
there was
versions,
adaptation
yeah.
before there was this,
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah.
And the book is actually really tough to read as well. I mean, it's written all in the Leith kind of Edinburgh
Oh
dialect,
God.
and
Really
it's very very difficult to read.
Yeah.
You have to kind of read it in the accent. You kind of get used to it after a while.
Yeah.
But the accents are a central part
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you do it?
of the whole thing. I can't. I'm not going to even try. Right. But I mean, sometimes the way that they'll say certain phrases or different words will be used.
Mhm.
Like heed instead of head, right? I mean, it's not a different way. You know the way that it's pronounced.
Yeah.
Was it
It's
was it
such
filmed
a
down
central
for
part.
the movie?
I don't know. Maybe it was. I don't think so.
Because
I don't know many-
I haven't read the novel, so I don't know.
I mean, the novel's really it's very very thick. But I think the reason it's so popular, Trainspotting, is that it captures a certain period within the 90s, right? Where
And it's also unapologetic for a drug movie.
oh, very
Yeah.
much
Very
so.
much,
Yeah.
and that is also why some people also scared of it because it doesn't
Mhm.
really moralize that much.
Mhm.
And you've got the characters almost trying to glamorize it, right? But
Yeah.
actually failing.
Yeah.
So it's not like the other way around where the characters are failing and the film is glamorizing it, which you often
Yeah.
get.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But you get that with people trying to make excuses
Mhm.
for falling into the drug.
But that's real
Okay.
life. That's what all drug addicts do.
Yeah.
They do this, and they just keep going back and back and back to the,
Well, for
the
me,
same thing.
No, I've only seen it once, and it was a really long time ago, so I don't remember much. But one of the things I do remember, and it's come from someone who has never even smoked weed, so I don't know anything about drugs. But like in the sense that for me, in a lot of films and TV shows, it talks about drugs and also about trying to kick the habit. It never seems like easy walk in the park, but I don't feel it looks too easy for me often. Like they show a short montage of a little bit of vomiting, a little bit of sweating, and that's it. And Trainspotting, it's not like that. Like in Trainspotting, for me, it feels very authentic. Like the way they show, drug use, drug abuse, and trying to, stop using drugs and all of that comes with it. And that for me really made it a very interesting film to watch, and it's really not an easy film to watch, like you all said. Also, because it really gives me such a view into the drug world, and that was very interesting to me. And that's for me the most interesting and powerful thing about the film.
So the style of the movie, and also I think also of Danny Boyle. It is a film style on speed. So it uses different angles, a lot of cutting. And the montages they keep coming, especially when there's a high, and some of them, some of these things, of these way of telling how a drug trip has become a clearly cliche after this movie, but also the style of filming and the style of showing a sort of form of pop culture from the 90s. Already started in the 80s with the music clips, like giving a sort of like an adrenaline shot of visuals. I think Danny Boyle is really grew up with that kind of way of telling also a story. And sometimes for me it also works against it, because you could also say he kind of shies away of using another style, having a longer shot of the character sitting there miserably in a corner and just high and mumbling, and not even, because that's also part of drugs. People are could be incomprehensible only in their own mind as paradise.
Yeah.
But I mean,
doesn't
those
it
are the
reflect
things.
the character's experience?
Yes, more of the character's
disorienting kind of cuts, the fast cuts,
yes,
the way that maybe time is a bit distorted.
But I'm not sure if they really go for a realistic style, or trying to portray certain experiences of drug users. But
you need to go back to the source material as well. So I'm being the only person that's read the book. But the book is told in kind of episodic, in an episodic way. So then, so then these vignettes of stuff that happened that kind of loosely join together, which is what the film is like as well, right? So whether that's Danny Boyle's choice or just adaptation from the book, it's reasonably true to the book, I would say. So
but I also read that they said that they literally went through with the screenwriter and with Danny Boyle, and I don't know if Irvin Welsh was there, like which vignettes in the book would be best to be put on film. So they were really conscious about what they picked within the book, but they kind of indeed kept to the film style, the making of the film, also the style of the how the book is written, like elliptic and loosely and the style of how a drug addict might see their life.
but if you take a step back and look at Danny Boyle and his career, because if you look at his filmography, I remember for a long time when I saw, okay, this is a Danny Boyle film, I really need to see that because it's going to be great. But if you look at his entire filmography, then you're going to be like, yeah, but I don't really like that many of his films. Like, he hasn't done like a million films. I think he's done like, I don't know, 12 or something. Like, not a crazy amount. But for me, like there are definitely a couple of misses. Look at like Trance, for example, that did with James McAvoy.
I saw that.
Nobody's seen that, but I wanted to say that. You have seen that. So, but like listen, like if you compare, like you have like Denis Villeneuve, Christopher Nolan, people I really like all of their films, even the smaller ones, I really appreciate. I don't appreciate all of his films, and I've noticed that. He was sort of like the go-to guy for a short amount of time, and even in Hollywood, like he's less of a he's not one of the big boys anymore, it seems. So is it that he is that talented, but maybe hasn't worked on the right project, or was he for a short while a little bit overrated? That's basically my question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, or he just hasn't found a script that he likes.
No, it could be.
Yeah.
I must say what is very clear in this, if you look at his filmography, it's very diverse across genre and across topics. Like Slumdog Millionaire ain't the same as Trainspotting. Sunshine, which I like, which
underrated film.
Which I have a weak spot for because it has its faults clearly, but yes, I don't know his. Also, I was talking about that he had kind of a hyper style, and he uses it in most of his movies, but not all of his movies. So he's sort of like a sort of bigger name, but at the same time he's not a clear auteur. I think he's not.
Exactly.
He doesn't really choose in the filmic style, and also stories. He has not very clear line. I think for Nolan, for example, that is much clearer, where his affections go out to in topics and how he makes his films. But Danny Boyle is a bit more, and that's sometimes also difficult for people. Yeah, maybe for to appreciate him, like in general. Also because, but I must say that personally, most of his films I don't really care about. With Nolan, that's it.
Have you seen many of the other ones, Nico?
I've seen the 127 Hours and Slumdog Millionaire, but
both of those were really
I quite like them. Yeah.
highly rated.
Yeah.
Right? I haven't seen either. But
I mean, 127 Hours is just basically focused on one guy with his arm caught. You know.
James Franco.
Yeah,
it's a very long film, isn't it?
Yeah,
Very long.
it's very long.
Time.
Exactly.
His arm is getting longer during
Yeah.
movie, which is
And then all of a sudden
nice.
it's not as long.
We're seeing that you haven't seen Slumdog Millionaire, that you
I
just
haven't
said.
seen Slumdog
You haven't seen
Millionaire.
that?
I don't like Slumdogs and I like Millionaires, so you know.
There's something wrong with you.
Do you know this? You know this.
You don't know Slumdogs. Like you're talking about
I know the actor.
Trainspotting.
I know the
You're
actor.
talking about Trainspotting. You don't know like Slumdogs.
Ah, yeah.
No.
But do the characters?
I've
Do the
seen
characters
it.
is in Trainspotting live in an affluent neighborhood of Edinburgh? Or?
No.
I do think that Danny Boyle would have put in like the colonial soldiers in the movie.
If you would
He
make
is.
Dunkirk? Yeah.
Yes, he is
Okay.
that conscious of. He is.
Can we talk about Robert Carlyle's performance, because I think that's so good. I think I love Robert Carlyle. Do you think he was caricatured? Is that what you're going to come out and say?
I like it, but
Because there are people like that.
after that,
He's gonna hate
what
me.
happened to this actor?
What happened to Robert Carlyle?
He had
He did so much stuff.
He's
He's done
a
so
pretty
much.
good actor.
I think he's done a lot of TV. He's done a lot
Yes,
of British
no,
TV.
I like it, but I mean,
What's his
it's also a
character's
little
name?
bit. He got a little bit stuck
The
on
really like
Well,
rough guy,
no.
the one with the moustache.
who doesn't actually use
The one that tries to kill
drugs.
everyone.
Yeah.
Oh,
Does
God.
he use drugs? He
No.
only
No,
drinks
he
a
doesn't.
lot.
He just tries to kill
He
everybody.
drinks a lot and he's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
over
and
the
just an
top.
asshole. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, he's great.
No, he was great. I thought
I
he was.
love
Yeah.
I like the actor, but okay.
I think he was in-
mention the other.
And what about Johnny Lee? Okay, I don't know, but
Okay, yeah.
Johnny Lee Miller as well. What else has he done? He was really great as the blonde guy.
Yeah. Okay. He was in a couple other things, but I don't remember.
Yeah, he was in
I can't
Hackers before it.
Oh right,
But,
that's right. That's where I remember him from.
Yeah,
That's a great movie.
It's,
Yeah.
for me that's
Yeah,
available, but
you don't know what the movie is. Hackers is an amazing movie.
Angelina Jolie is in it.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Very good. It was where she came breakthrough performance for her.
Go on Drop is also a breakthrough film.
No,
Yes, it was.
this is no.
Yes, it was. Go Drop is also a breakthrough film.
Is it going to be Bloods?
I want
But-
to.
Yeah.
There might be. There might be.
Podcast.
I would like to give back to Trainspotting. What do you
Why?
guys think of the use of music?
Oh.
This
Yes,
movie has
yes.
music in its DNA. I mean,
Yes,
so
that's
many
one
movies
thing-
have music, but it is pop music. It's
Yeah.
Iggy Pop until
All right.
90s
So much
music.
Iggy Pop.
That's, I think,
I love Iggy Pop personally. But that's my.
like I said, it's been a long time for me. That's one of the things I remember most is the music,
Yes.
and I think it's.
Flows well. It flowed well.
Like the drugs.
Yeah. The music did too.
Yeah, well, I mean, for a certain generation, we're not that we're probably a bit young for that generation, but for a certain generation of people who were really in their 20s and the 90s, that completely was an era-defining soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
Particularly the Born Slippy, right? The
From
Underworld tune, yeah, which was chosen like that wasn't known before the film.
I'm
The
not that
other
old.
songs probably were known.
I'm that old, but I didn't know Born Slippy.
No, you know the la ga la ga la ga la, but that one, yeah. So yeah, I think Danny Boyle was sent that like a tape of it. They had just made a demo, and then he said, "Yeah, okay, that's what I want."
The scene, the scene
That works,
That
yeah.
drug scene. I mean, that is also is because you could, like, if you look at these cliches about drug uses, about LSD uses, you often have the Woodstock crowd, you know, using that long hair, the hippies. But this 90s version of the drug scene, yes, Underworld, that song of Underworld, Born Slippy, really fits the bill. But still, they also use the darker later 70s music of like the likes of Iggy Pop, Lou Reed. So the kind of coming down of the
swinging 60s.
The swinging 60s and kind of the utopian beliefs of that drugs will free people's minds.
Yeah.
But Trainspotting shows that it can fuck you up horribly.
Okay, guys, final thoughts on Trainspotting.
Best Danny Boyle film ever. His magnum opus, by far, like 2 times better than Slumdog Millionaire. I liked it.
Yeah.
I like it more than Trainspotting, but I like.
You like what more than Trainspotting?
Trainspotting. The film I liked more than Trainspotting.
Oh,
like actual Trainspotting, like the actual sport.
Good one.
Yeah.
Right,
hilarious. Hilarious. That was good. That was good.
Get out.
Yeah.
Nicole.
I mean, I picked the movie. I mean, it's a classic. There's not much more you can say besides, it's just a classic.
What about in particular? Why did you choose it? Do you just like it a lot?
I just liked it a lot.
Okay.
There's no reason. I mean, I know that I thought everyone had seen it, so it's it's not a movie that. But also, there's not a lot of reviews on it. Actually, if you look online, there's not that many reviews on Trainspotting. I don't think that people like to delve into that.
Just on the border of it. There is internet. There is no internet.
Exactly. Yeah. So
maybe that's it. Maybe they haven't scanned in the Empire reviews, the column. For me, I think it goes on a bit long. I think it does drag at points. Actually, having rewatched it, but I think it's like you said, it's Danny Boyle's probably his greatest work, and I just really loved any dialects in a film.
Oh, I
love the way that it makes a film. I tried to watch Good Vibrations, which is a film I think set in Belfast, and it's about a record shop in Belfast during the Troubles in the 80s, or the 70s and 80s, and I tried to watch it here in Germany, and the Netflix version is only in German. They only have the dubbed version, which is, I mean, firstly, you should never watch the dubbed version, and secondly, I think it's even more vandalism because it's taking away the Belfast accent, which is the core, which is one of the cores of the identity of those people.
Yeah, but now I'm curious. I'm curious because I would think they would be using the accent, the German accent of Hamburg.
I don't know what they use, but but it's terrible.
It would be so.
So we've been looking at today. We've had a look at Dunkirk, season 7, episode 4 of Game of Thrones, and just now Trainspotting. This has been the Last Review Show. You can find us at Last Review Show on Twitter. Go to lastreviewshow.com to see the blog and have a read of all the stuff that Joel writes.
Yeah, mostly me.
Yeah. Joel, what's your personal blog called?
It's joel-linger.com.
Joel-linger.com, also some great reviews, particularly if you like The Leftovers, the HBO TV series. Joel's a big fan. And you can find us on SoundCloud and YouTube, just search Last Review Show. So I've been David Edgecombe, and I have had with me
Nicole Moore,
Roy Verlandschoot,
and Joel Linger.
Thanks very much. Join us next time. Bye bye.